Have you ever ended a family phone call and realized that you were now carrying a conflict that wasn't even yours? I have, more times than I can count. Somewhere along the way, I just became the listener, the translator, the mediator, the family courtroom. And it's time to let it go. And if you're in the same boat, then let's talk. I'm La, and this is Sitting with the Chickens here on the Accidental Chicken Whisperer channel on YouTube, where I hope that we can have honest conversations about life, midlife, and whatever the chickens and I are trying to understand, even if we absolutely solve nothing other than enjoy each other's company and sit. Today, I want to talk about something that I don't fully know how to talk about: family and its drama, but not in a dramatic way, not in a let me tell you everything that happened kind of way. No, too complicated. But truthfully, that's not really the point. Reality is that family pain doesn't work very well when we try to turn it all into one neat little story. It's way too layered. Sometimes it's just too old. There are way too many people in it. And in my case, there's 8 kids. I'm second oldest. Too many memories, too many versions of what had happened, sometimes years ago. Too many things one person meant one way and another person received it completely different. So, this is not coming from someone who has figured it all out. Heck no. I'm not a therapist. I am not a family expert. Thank goodness I am not. I'm definitely not about to give you this wonderful 3 step process to solve conflict with people who have known you since before you had teeth. And maybe some of them even had to wipe your butt. I am just La, a 50-year-old woman sitting outside with my chickens before I start my day and my errands. And we're just still trying to understand life as we go. And perhaps some of you are trying to understand this too, this question: how do we stay connected to family without owning every conflict, every grievance, and every hurt feeling that gets handed to us? Sometimes it comes out that we are not even part of the original conflict. We were never in the room. We didn't even say anything. And we weren't even the person who caused the hurt. But somehow we ended up holding pieces of it afterwards. Some of us somehow became that person: the mediator, the listener, the translator, you know, like that iPhone app. I don't know, whatever you call it. We sometimes become the telephone, the one that people call when they're upset, the one who tries to understand everyone, the one who can see both sides, which sounds like a beautiful quality to have until both sides start handling you, all the story, and wanting you to litigate. And this is not even your fight to begin with. Suddenly, you're not just listening anymore, you're now holding everyone's hurt, their frustration, their disappointment, their version of the story. And somewhere along the way, you start feeling responsible for a problem that did not belong to you when the conversation started. I've been that person too many times. And in all honesty, I didn't even apply for the job. No one sat me down and said, "Congratulations, La, you are now the family complaint department." It just sort of happened. Perhaps it's because I'm the second oldest of 8. But I also know that I'm not the only one who has ended up in that role. Maybe you're the oldest. Maybe you're the responsible one. Or perhaps you're the calm one. Maybe you're the one who sees both sides of the stories. Maybe you're the one people believe will understand. Someone calls and you listen. Someone is hurt and you try to understand. Someone is angry and you try to see what's underneath the anger. Someone feels misunderstood and you try to make room for that too. And that isn't necessarily a bad thing. Most of us don't want to become someone who hears pain and immediately shuts the door. Although doing so may do us some good too. But there's a difference between listening to someone and carrying what they handed you after the conversation ends. Because sometimes the phone call ends, but the conversation doesn't. It comes with you and it stresses you out. At least it does for me. A lot. We think about it while we're doing dishes, while we're feeding the chickens ready to run our errands, while driving, when we're trying to fall asleep. And we start wondering what we should have said, whether we should step in, whether we should explain one person to another, or maybe we should just stay quiet and hope they don't think that we just don't give a damn. And if we draw the boundary, does that mean that we are selfish? But then one day you realize that you are emotionally living inside conflict that belongs to two other adults who cannot talk to one another. That's the that's the part that gets really heavy. Not just hearing that someone is hurting, but becoming the place where the unresolved thing goes to sit. Hi, Libby. Sometimes I wish that humans could be a little bit more like my feather friends here. Not completely. Let's not go too far. Yes, my feather babies can be ridiculous, but you know one thing I love? They are very direct, too direct sometimes. If one of them wants what another one has, she doesn't form a committee. She doesn't call three other hens to discuss the history of the food. I've never heard her say, well, this reminds me of what happened last year when Coconut also got the better snack. No, she just goes for it. Yes, there is flapping and pecking and kicking. There may be some type of stare down towards each other. Someone may act personally betrayed. But truth is, 5 minutes later, they're all scratching the same dirt like nothing had happened. Now, I'm not saying people should act like chickens. No, no. Please do not take that as my life advice. We are humans after all. We have memories, we have family history, we have true, real pain. We have things that happened years ago that still shape how we hear each other now. But sometimes I do watch these chickens and think, my goodness, we really do keep some things alive for way too long. And we understand why. Family pain is rarely just about the things that happened today. It is about today and last year and 10 years ago, from childhood, and who had to be responsible, who was protected, and who was overlooked, and who feels like they carried more than anyone ever noticed. So when someone says, I'm upset about this one thing, it's not always about that one thing. Sometimes it's like opening Pandora's box. Everything that was shoved inside comes flying out. Old hurt, old resentment, old roles, old expectations, old disappointments. And suddenly, the conflict that's right in front of us, in front of you, is not about just what happened. It's about what reminded everyone of. And that's hard because the hurt is real. The grievance can be valid. The truth is, someone really did say something mean and painful, and it hurt. Someone really did fail to show up. And sometimes accountability needs to happen. And I don't want to minimize that. I don't want to just tell someone, our family member that we love, to just move on. We really shouldn't pretend peace while, people are still hurting underneath. But there's also a point where talking about the same hurt over and over doesn't always heal it. Sometimes it feels like we're just keeping it warm. And if no effort is being made to repair the hurt and the damage, then we are not really moving towards healing. We are rehearsing the pain, the same pain, sometimes just to prove a case. We end up gathering evidence, and sometimes that looks like getting one person to understand why we were right. And I say this gently because I've done it too. I wanted someone to understand my side. I wanted someone to say, no, you are not crazy, Law. That shit really did hurt, and they are at fault. I've repeated a story because I was still trying to make sense of it. So, no, I'm not above this. Most of us probably aren't. But maybe the question is this helping? Not, is this true? Because some things can be true and it still is not helping anyone. Other questions we should be asking is, do I have a right to feel this? Because yes, sometimes we absolutely do. But is the way we are carrying it helping? And is the way we are talking about it helping? Is the way we are handing it to other people helping? Is this moving anyone towards clarity, repair, boundary, perhaps, understanding, or peace? Or are we keeping ourselves in the same courtroom, presenting the same case, waiting for a verdict that may never come? That is what I've been asking myself a lot lately. But one thing is true, I do not want to be the family courtroom anymore. I'm not Judge Judy. I don't get paid enough. I do not want to hear every case nor decide who is right. I don't want to determine who is suffering more. I'm really not in the business of comparing the wounds. And maybe some of you don't want that role anymore either. We don't want to be the place where everybody's anger gets stored. It is so exhausting, emotionally draining, and I've been feeling it. And we do not have to carry every disagreement that has happened, every fight, just because someone's is placing it in our hands. I learned it's really not that we don't care. It's just that we no longer want to litigate everyone else's grievances because our mental health matters too. Truth is, caring and carrying are not always the same thing. In some ways, this feels like a midlife lesson, for me at least, because by the time we reach this age, 50 in my case, we start realizing that there isn't an unlimited emotional space. There isn't unlimited energy. Time truly is limited now. And we should not waste years replaying conflicts that nobody involved is ready to solve or resolve. There is still a life that needs to be lived, a home to care for, a marriage that needs presence, children we want to watch grow into their own lives, adventures that we still want to have while we can. Yes, there's still work. In my case, my little business, our health dreams that are still waiting for us out there. And in my case, there are chickens outside here who acts like I haven't fed them since last week. So there is already a lot to hold. Um, you know, I reflect on my own life. There's a lot in it. I'm sure some of you have a lot as well. I know that for a fact. I'm intent on creating a safe and nurturing home for me and my little family. I need to be even more present in my marriage. And I just want to continue to plan adventures. My husband and I are soon to be empty nesters come next year. We want to be present for our own children and we want to watch them accomplish their goals and dreams. And I am still running the food cart, however long that may be. But the other thing is, I want to continue to grow this media business and company of mine. And I have to deal with my own health too, which has been rough this past year. And still, we're still carrying the loss of our eldest son from a couple of years ago. I have plenty of dreams that I feel are still waiting for me. I'm not too old. And I'm sure there are probably still dreams waiting for you as well. We really cannot be fully present in our own lives if we continue to emotionally carry everyone and their pain and unresolved pain. I know that sounds simple when we say it, but it isn't as simple when it comes to family. I don't know why. I guess as a family we have history. We all have roles sometimes. We all have expectations, and sometimes before we even realize that we're responding to those roles that we have always played instead of asking whether the situation is actually ours to carry. In some ways, we are not helping the situation either. I come to understand that. So if you've always been the person who smooths things out or over, it can feel almost wrong to stop. Like you are abandoning this role that was given to you even though you don't really want it. But maybe some roles were never meant to be permanent. Maybe some roles were just given to us because we're just there. Maybe we're capable, too capable sometimes. Or perhaps in some situations, we get treated like a dumping ground. Maybe we were too sensitive, responsible, or we learned early on how to read the room better than most. Maybe we became that person because we were just the older sibling, the one who notices the tension and the one who tried to mediate from a young age and the one who could feel the shift in the room before anyone said anything. And maybe at some point we get to ask whether that role is still healthy for us. We are getting older, at least for me. Maybe we get to say, and we should be saying, I can care about what is happening. I can hear that someone is hurting. I can believe that the situation matters. And I can still not be the middle person. That is the part that I'm choosing to practice even more now. I'm not perfect. It won't be done perfectly. Please don't imagine me sitting here as some peaceful, enlightened woman who always says the right thing. I am human after all. A chicken mama, not even a great one. I'm just an accidental chicken whisperer at that, right? But, I do find peace sitting here with my feather baby, so there's a trade off. And yes, I still get pulled in. Even recently, I still overthink quite a bit and I still want to explain things. I still have moments where I think, goodness law, maybe if I say just the right thing, everyone will finally understand each other. And then life reminds me that people only understand what they are ready to understand. Maybe this is one of those things many of us are unlearning. It is a challenge, to be honest with you, to unlearn being the second oldest for me. I can't be the only one who feels this way. Maybe you're the oldest and you're the responsible one, the mediator, right? Or the person who believes every conflict needs involvement. I really have come to the conclusion that other people's problems are theirs to fix because no one else's is responsible for fixing them. And we're not supposed to anyway. So I got to thinking maybe I should be phrasing things differently for my sake. I'm learning to ask that, instead of saying, how do I fix this? Perhaps the question is this even mine? And instead of asking, how do I make everyone feel better? Perhaps the appropriate question should be, what would actually help? Instead of asking, should I be on anyone's side? Maybe it should be, what is the most honest and kind thing I can do from where I am standing? Sometimes what helps is maybe just listening. Other times it is a direct conversation. Maybe it's space, maybe it's boundary. I don't know. Perhaps maybe it's more just very practical things, just sitting quietly beside them and not saying anything. I've learned that not every hurt needs a speech, and that care is ordinary. Care is not offering another opinion. Sometimes care is not adding fuel to the fire. And sometimes care is just saying, I think that this is something you need to talk to them about. And sometimes care is just saying, I care about you, but I cannot keep carrying this conversation. That sentence is actually really hard. It even feels uncomfortable for me saying it out loud because we know how it can sound. It sounds kind of cold and dismissive at times. It can sound like, don't bother me with your problems or your pain, but that is not what it means. What it means is, I can care about your pain without becoming the storage place for it. I can be concerned without agreeing to be the bridge between you and someone else forever. I can be present without being consumed. And I can listen without taking the whole story home with me and letting it just ooze through my body, which is stressful. There is also a difference between needing support and needing an audience for our anger. And again, I say that carefully because anger is not always wrong. Sometimes anger is the part of us that finally says, this matter. Sometimes anger protects us from minimizing our own hurt. But anger also likes company. What is that old saying? It's something like misery loves company. It likes confirmation. It likes gathering people around the campfire. And if we are not careful, the fire gets bigger. Not because anyone is healing, gosh, no, but because everyone keeps adding wood to the fire. So I got to thinking for myself that if I can help, then perhaps I'll try to help. But if I cannot, then you know what? I don't want to contribute to the hurt. I do not want to make this situation even heavier. I don't want to keep the fire going just because, where all the matches are. I do not want to turn someone else's painful moment into another family trial. And, you know, I'm not going to criticize, from a distance. I don't want to, hurt myself by carrying what was never mine to hold anymore because it is painful and it is stressful. Sometimes we talk about not hurting others, but we forget that we can hurt ourselves just by over functioning, by stepping into every gap, by becoming responsible for every feeling that's in the room, and by taking phone calls that probably sometimes leave us emotionally wrecked, or reading text that leaves us that way. Maybe the best thing is just not to be available for conflict. And maybe some of us do not want to do that anymore, or at least we don't want to be a part of it, maybe do it less. The last several months, I have to say that silencing my phone and not reading all the text messages was the best thing I've ever done. Being an older sibling and observing family conflict over the years, there's something tender underneath all of this, and I have to acknowledge that. I think that sometimes family conflict is just old hurt wearing new clothes. Someone is carrying the hurt of not having the parent that they needed. Someone else is carrying the hurt of the sibling relationship they wish they had. And someone is carrying the hurt of a childhood that did not feel fair. Or perhaps it's just carrying years of feeling unseen. Perhaps someone is waiting for an apology that never came. And they're also, can be hurt about what the family used to be or what we thought we would become. I know I'm feeling it, because as we get older, family changes. Everyone has their own lives now. their own homes, marriages, partnership, children, their own stress, daily life, things. And sadly, their own version of the story. And then the dynamic shifts and the balance that used to be gets thrown off. And then what ended up happening is that people, instead of coming together, they start pulling apart. Anger comes out when you have just a little conversation. Criticism starts again, and someone wants to be in control. Someone then all of a sudden creates the distance. The resentment grows. Phone calls come, text comes. I hate them. I can honestly say that. And it's like we start it all over again. The old hurt, wearing new clothes. And maybe that's why this feels so hard. We can give compassion for the sadness, and we can understand the hurt. We can see how someone got there, but we still cannot be the courtroom. We can't make the past any different than what it is. Um, we can't give everyone the version of each other they needed years ago. It's not really our problem to do anyway, not our responsibility. We can't go back and force repair for people who are not ready. And I have to say that's very painful to admit, but I have to also be honest that the part of peace is perhaps maybe accepting that every story gets resolved in a way that satisfies everyone, and knowing that the conversations will and no one will understand. Some people may never say the thing we need or wish they would say. Apologies may never come, and some relationships may stay tender. And in some cases, boundaries may be necessary even when care is still there. And some of us may have to let go of the role we played for so long. In my case, the fixer, the listener, the judge, the bridge, the mediator, the telephone. I'm getting rid of the courtroom. Let's just put it that way. Now, this doesn't mean that we stop caring or that we stop showing up or that we should become hard. I definitely don't want to become hard. That's also hard for me. I'm sure most of us probably don't want to be hardened. We want to, sometimes stay a little bit soft to care about people because we are family. But strong enough not to disappear into everyone else's pain, though. And that is the balance that I'm trying to put forth for myself. I want to care, but I don't want to always be available. And I want to be present, but I do not want to be consumed by people's problem. So maybe this is what we are sitting with today. Maybe the question is not how do we make the situation better? Maybe the question is what is actually mine to hold. And if it is not mine, then can I just hand it back to people with honesty? Not with anger, not with punishment, not with resentment, not with the speech that makes us sound more evolved than we are, but just with honesty, something to the effect of I care about what is happening, but I cannot be in the middle of it. I hear you, but I think this belongs to you and them. And I care about you, but I do not think repeating this is helping anyone. I want peace, but I cannot carry the whole family to get there. Those are not easy sentences, but they may be honest ones. Maybe we can care without becoming the courtroom. We can listen without taking the whole story home with us and carrying it. We can stay connected without carrying everything. And maybe at this point in life, that is a small kind of freedom. I would really like to hear from you. Have you ever been the person in your family who ends up carrying everyone else's conflict and all the drama that goes along with it? And how do you know when listening is helping and when it is time to hand the problem back? Share with me in the comment. So thanks for sitting with me and my feather babies today, all my chickens. And wherever you are and whatever you're carrying, I hope that you feel a little bit less alone. I'm La, and this is Sitting with the Chickens here on the Accidental Chicken Whisper, and I will see you next time.